Hi everyone and welcome back. So I wanted to talk about a very sensitive, controversial, but important topic on skin bleaching and colorism amongst Africans. And when I say Africans, I'm talking about Africans on the continent and Africans across the diaspora. Africans who were born in Africa and Africans who are descendants of Africans that live across the world. Because this is an epidemic. This is a major issue that I have noticed prior to today, but I did have an encounter today with this African woman. When I went to Brooklyn today, she owns a shop out in Brooklyn. And when I walked inside, like, I knew she was Nigerian. Something just said to me, like, okay, she's Nigerian. But I always ask, I like to ask, like, people, especially Africans, like, when I'm buying something, because I like to know, okay, who's selling it, where are they from? It's interesting to me. I'll have this sense of curiosity and wanting to know not only where the person is who's selling the items to me, but also maybe where the items come from, right? And granted, I'm very content with my purchase. Like, she was a very vibrant soul. And I feel that I needed to talk about this in this video. It's really important, and it impacted me in a special way today when I met her and we talked. We talked for a good 20-30 minutes inside her shop. And I asked her, you know, where she's from, and she told me Nigeria, and I'm like, okay, that's confirmation. But how would I know she's from Nigeria? I knew instantly that she's from Nigeria when I saw her skin, because a lot of Nigerian women have taken to skin bleaching. This is a serious problem. And I had an impulse to ask her, do you bleach your skin and why? Initially, right? But I held off on that. And we were talking about a lot of different things. You know, she's a shop owner, a business owner. She was telling me about, you know, the woes of the pandemic and how she has been negatively impacted as far as business, which a lot of businesses have, you know, across New York City, even in my neighborhood where I live on Upper East Side, which is considered to be a higher income neighborhood. People make minimum 6 figures where I live. So this is impacting a lot of people, not just in New York City, but across the U.S., right? And I'm sure globally, right? The pandemic has had a major economic impact on people. So she was telling me about, you know, how it has impacted her business and, you know, some issues she's been having with her landlord, who is Jewish. No surprise, you know, like we know the Jewish community, the Jewish group, they own and control a lot of New York City. And she was telling me how her landlord, you know, he owns a lot of properties in that area, including where she's at. And she's been there for a couple years, and, you know, because of the pandemic, just like I said, like a lot of people, a lot of business owners just have not been able to pay their commercial space rent. And, you know, we know that there's like a loan for business owners that they can apply for to kind of protect their business, even though they do have to pay it back. But there's a loan that they can apply for, I think, through the SBA. I think it's up to like $10,000, which really isn't that much money, right? And she was telling me about how much her commercial space is. And actually, I was really surprised to see that the amount for her commercial space isn't really that much, right? Because I actually been in the market shopping around for commercial spaces in Manhattan and in Brooklyn, but mostly in Manhattan and Harlem area, because I have a business venture that I'm about to embark upon. And the one I found in Harlem, it was actually $5,000 per floor. Per month, you guys. Not per year. Per month, okay? So that's like $10,000. It's a 2-story commercial space. and basically $10,000 per month. I'm like, okay, can I do it? I'm sure I can do it, but if you can find something much cheaper, then why not, right? So she's telling me about her space, how much she pays, which is basically half of that amount. And I'm like, wow, this is a nice space. It's like one of the traditional kind of storefronts that you see in Brooklyn, right? It's very spacious, enough room to be able to do what she's doing, right? And I'm like, okay, but I get it, you know, she's struggling, as is a lot of business owners, as are a lot of business owners, like they weren't able to pay their rent, behind on rent. But it's even beyond that. She has some issues with her landlord that she was telling me about. You know, it makes sense though, right? Like, especially during the pandemic, the pressure, like that they could say, you can tell, right, the strength of a relationship. It doesn't matter if it's business, personal, when pressure is applied. And so a lot of people are realizing that the people that they thought they had in their corner, personal and business wise, just, they can't depend upon them, right? During this pandemic, people need that money. It's about that pay, especially in New York City, yo. Like, I mean, we know America runs on capitalism, but especially in New York City, like, it's about that dollar. It is about the dollar. That's just the bottom line, you know. And so her and her landlord had some issues. She was telling me about that and talking about, you know, just, you know, her dating life, how she's in her 40s, and she, you know, she asked me the question, which I wanted to talk to you guys about, because I thought it was interesting. I like topics like this, right? Well, what's the deal with, you know, American men, specifically black African American men? You say even there in the UK, in London, Manchester, Birmingham. Oh yeah, I know, it's bad, yo, it's bad. So she's, you know, she went to talking about, you know, her dating, and, you know, she's met some men, and, you know, she's brought up the subject of marriage to no avail, right? So she's seeking, like, my advice on it, and I had to give her my unadulterated opinion on this. Because, it goes without saying, I think, that anytime a woman brings up marriage, like, men run, right? But she wanted to know, like, especially coming from an African-American woman as myself, I'm born here. She wasn't born here. She's from Nigeria. She's like, what's the deal with, you know, these men? She's like, are most men like this in America? Like, they just don't want to get married? The black men don't want to get married? And I, you know, of course, me being the optimistic person I am, I say, well, I wouldn't say that's all men, right? Because there are black men who want to get married. But I think there's an issue when a woman brings up the idea of marriage, right? Like, you're dating, and I get it, you know. I get it. Like, I can relate. I'm a 37-year-old woman, so that's, I think, the reason why me and her, we click so easily. Not only that we, you know, are close in age, but we're also, like, close in, like, spirit experiences, right? Like, our spirit's connected. And I can identify with some things that she's gone through, she's experienced. You said the biggest bleachers in Africa are Congolese, followed by Nigerians. I mean, I don't know who's number one, but I've seen more so within the Nigerian population. The Congo, I haven't seen it in the Congo. But I'm not saying it doesn't exist in the Congo. I'm just saying what I've been exposed to. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. But yeah, so, like, I'm, you know, of course, trying to provide some hope for her. But at the same time, being realistic about the conversation, saying that it, you know, men typically do run. She was like, well, that's sad, you know, because I don't know, she's opposed to the idea of, you know, just being with a man, spending time, cooking, you cleaning for him. Freaking bug always try to come in my video. But you cooking and cleaning for a man, sexing him, right? And it's just like, it goes nowhere. I say, And I can see that she was pressuring the idea of, okay, marriage, you know, like, why don't these guys want to get married? You know, I'm doing all these things for them and they don't want to get married. And I'm just like, bingo. Like, you guys heard of the saying, like, why would a person pay for the milk when it's like, when you already getting it for free, right? Why would a man commit to that if he's already getting that for free without even having to, like, go through the whole rigmarole of committing to you on paper? Because that's a whole nother level. Granted, of course, anybody can file for divorce, but that's the whole process and having to do that. You say, I want marriage. Haven't found the right woman yet, though. Interesting. I mean, yeah, it's two-sided, right? It's two sides to this coin here in terms of finding that life partner. Men have their problems, too, in finding the right woman. Just like a woman has issues in finding, you know, a compatible, I would say compatible, you know, compatible partner. Because you got to really know yourself to attract that right person, right? And so I said, bingo, like, that's the problem. Like, you're saying you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're sexing, you're giving this man all of these things, and you're not married to him. So she was like, okay, so you think men are just going to wait around? You think there are men who are celibate in America that practice celibacy? I was like, well, yeah, I think so, but I think that's not really what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that if a man is getting all these things, what reason would he have to commit? But basically, she was trying to imply that, okay, if I withhold sex, she's saying that she withholds sex, right? What reason does he have to stay? I'm like, okay, you're right. But at the same time, then that would make things very clear for you if he's right for you. You know, because it's not about sex. Yes, sex is important, but a man should be genuinely interested in getting to know you as a person. And you got men that say, oh, well, that's how I get to know a woman, by having sex with her. Yeah, I'm sure. On a deeper, sensual, and spiritual level. But a lot of men aren't really tapped into their spirituality in that matter. Right? Men can have sex with a woman and be completely emotionally detached. Emotionally and spiritually and psychologically detached from that woman, yet he is having sex with her. It's different for a woman. So why expose yourself? So she's telling me how, you know, she's met some so-called good men, but the issue basically is that they just really don't want to commit on paper. And I'm asking her, okay, you are so pressed to be married. Like, what is it? What is marriage, right? I'm asking, like, what is marriage in your mind? What does that mean for you? Because marriage means different things for different people. What does it mean for you? Why is it something that you're craving so deeply? So she was like, well, I don't know about it in American society, but in Nigeria, when a woman is married to a man and he dies, then she inherits his estate, basically, right? Everything that he owns. Okay, it's the same thing in America. But I'm like, oh, okay, so that's your motivation. That's the reason why you're craving. I thought she was about to say something very deep and profound, but I'm like, I mean, I get it. She's a businesswoman. You know, I'm a businesswoman, so I'm like, I can relate to you. That's the reason why we click and we bond and we had this long conversation when I'm just in the store buying, you know, African garb, right? I didn't plan to have that conversation with her, but nonetheless, it happened, and I'm like, part of me, I think, as a woman, can relate to her. But looking at it from another perspective, right? I'm just like, it makes sense why she's still single in her mid-40s. On top of that, right? Because after I felt like we had established a degree of rapport, right? Because like I said, I didn't really want to jump right to this question, but it was just something that was just burning me up, It was burning me up because it was just like, boom, right in my face, right? It was just like, How can I not address her freaking skin? Like, like we're talking about the pandemic and how it's negatively impacted business owners and falling behind on the commercial rent. And we're talking woman to woman about dating and marriage. And I'm like, okay, you know, we're bonding in a certain extent, right? So I'm like, okay, me as a sister to sister, I have to say this. Like, I have to address this with her. And I asked her, I said, you bleach your skin? And she was like, yeah. But the way she said it was as if like, yeah, I bleach my skin. And I'm just rolling with her, right? I'm like, okay. And she was like, yeah, that's what that woman, the previous customer, had came into the store for. Some skin bleaching cream. And I'm just like, but I had to ask her why. I'm like, why? Why? And it's funny, the first time I asked her why, she deflected, yo. She completely dismissed it, right? And she just brushed over it and started talking about something else. But then I had to come back around to it. Because I'm like, there's no way. We're not going to just push that up under the table like it's not important to talk about. I mean, you feel comfortable talking to me about all this other stuff, and you know, dating men and the little dick. Listen, I can relate. We can have a long, deep-seated conversation about little dicks. I make videos about that, and I can relate to her. You know, it's frustrating, right? So you feel comfortable talking about that, but when I'm asking you why you bleach your skin, because that was disturbing to me. I'm just like, why? And she is not the first woman that I've met, actually, that bleached her skin in person, right? Because of course, we've all probably seen videos of the actual process of the skin bleaching, and I was just like, oh, that seemed like it hurts. Like, why go through that, right? But I saw a woman in person I met through a friend. This was actually a year ago. And I can tell that she clearly bleached her skin, because it's just like, yo, Africans do not have that complexion. Like, I know an African when I see an African, yo. And your skin is too light. Now, unless, of course, one of your parents is, you know, white or a different race, then, okay, it's going to make sense how your melanin has gotten diluted, right? And then you take on this lighter complexion as the offspring of an interracial situation happening, right? But I'm like, nah, I know when it's a natural, lighter complexion person versus a person who has darker melanin and they bleach their skin, because you can see it on her fingers. It's like, okay, her face, lighter. Her fingers, though, bad job, yo. You can see it's like dark spots on her fingers, and it's just like, why? It's like Michael Jackson tip. Exact. Michael Jackson had something else going. Yeah, but that's pretty much the condition that he had. They're trying to say it was like a biological or medical condition that impacted him. Oh, it was biological, all right. It was some psychological stuff going on too. So after she takes me around the world, when I asked her why she's bleaching her skin, like she talked about, like, yo, she took me through a whole scavenger hunt. It came back around and I asked her again, but why? I say, like, why bleach your skin? And she answered the question. And she answered it very honestly. Because it's just like, yo, you can't give me no bullshit answer. I'm going to call bullshit when I see it. You say, you don't know that you've ever met anyone that does. You're curious. You have many questions. So she answered. She gave me an answer. And this is what she said. Which I already know the answer. I mean, this is what I do. This is my research. My research is on black identity, acculturation, and implicit racial bias. And it covers all of that, right? The skin bleaching, the sense of feeling inferior to the dominant white race, colorism, racism. I talk about all of that in my dissertation, my research. That's my clinical focus. I've been doing this for a long time now, right? So this is just where my passion is, right? So of course I know why. I just wanted her to say it. Like, I wanted it to come to her conscious mind. And she said, basically, the way she responded, she painted the context, which I think is a safe way to go about responding to that kind of question, right? So, you know, she generalized the whole thing to say that, yeah, this is something that Nigerian women do. A lot of Nigerian women do it. And then she talked about how she had a friend who was darker skinned, a female friend who was darker skinned, and she had applied for a job, and she didn't get the job. Her friend had more years of experience, had already graduated and got her diploma. You know, she was qualified, basically. Her friend was more qualified than what she was. Yet she didn't have those qualifications, but she got the job. And she's explaining to me that she got the job because she was lighter skinned. And she said the person told her that. And I'm like, wow. You say vitiligo? You talking about Michael Jackson? Y'all, yo. What's up, Eric? Hi to everyone who's watching. So feel free to comment and share your thoughts on this topic. So she's telling me this story. And granted, her reason is valid. So I didn't dispute her reason, right? I'm listening to her, right? And I'm just like, damn. Listen to her tell me this story about, you know, how she got the job because of her lighter skin over her friend. And she said that the person who gave her the job actually was straight up with her and told her why. To say that patients don't like a darker skinned person caring for them. Excuse me. They prefer a lighter complexion person. And that's why they gave her the job. And I'm like, I know about this, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know. My eyes are wide open, you know. Very woke. I get it. I'm from the South. So I get it. I get it. I was born and raised in Florida. It's the reason why I'm no longer there. I get it. But hearing her tell me this, you know, and seeing, like, her bleached skin, like, it did hurt. I felt hurt inside, you know. I felt hurt. And I let her know, you know, that's sad. And not only that, she went on talking about, you know, back to the dating situation. And how black men typically cheat on their wives. I think she's talking about more African men, but whatever. She's saying that these men cheat on their wives, and usually it's with a lighter skinned woman. I didn't judge her though. At this point, I'm just listening to her and empathizing with her, like woman to woman. You know, it's a woman to woman conversation. I'm empathizing with her. I'm just like, ugh. Only thing I was missing was giving her a hug. I should have probably gave her a hug, but I'm just like, oh my gosh. It's crazy, right? You say that would want to make someone change their skin. What would make someone want to change their skin? The whole job discrimination? Discriminating with offering someone a job, right? Because we gotta survive, right? We gotta eat, pay our bills. You know, so... And listen, this is not about to create a divide between black or African American women and African women. No, we all African, we all black. And guess what? African American women, we also have our own insecurities as it relates to our skin complexion. Now, we may not be going to the extent of dyeing or bleaching our skin, but you see other manifestations of self-hatred exhibited amongst African American women. You know, I'm not about to go into the detail, into naming it, because I get it. Some of y'all watching this video, and some of y'all are guilty yourself, so you know. You know the ways that black women try to look white, or try to look like the exotic women that you think the black men like in the videos, in the music videos, with this straight bone, straight hair that you know your mama didn't give you that, right? You wasn't born with that. This is touchy, I know. And it goes into the whole idea of, because I know black women we come to our own defense and we say, oh, well, we're just artistic. You know, there are many different varieties and flavors of a black woman. So all black women ain't got to walk around here looking nappy, you know, wearing nappy hair that grow out their head. You know, we are very creative in our expression, in our beauty. And it's okay if we get a straightening comb and straighten our hair, or put a relaxer in our hair and make our hair relaxed. Right? So I agree with that position too, right? Because we are a very dynamic race, you know, and we can color our hair blue, red, purple, and it ain't got nothing to do with, oh, we trying to fit in or be accepted by white people, or we hate our own natural hair. Sometimes we just want to express ourselves in different ways to be artistic, right? Even in Africa, there are cultures like indigenous, traditional cultures in Africa where they do add dye to their hair. It's not blonde, but it's more like red. You know, they'll color their hair like red. And I don't think they really change the texture of it though. So that could be the difference. But it's serious, you guys. And she mentioned, as we were talking about like the impact of the pandemic on business and how she hasn't been making really that much money. She's like, she barely put in $1,000 a month. When you got rent, that's $5,000 a month. And I'm like, it's bad out here, yo. You say you like dark skin tone women? Yeah, the truth is it's very touchy. It's a very touchy conversation. Sharonda said, I'm twisting my locks now. You gotta love yourself, man. That's the thing. Self-love is hard for a lot of black women. It's easier said than done. And yes, you got, you know, men like Corey who says they like dark-skinned women, or I like it nappy. But it's like, do you though? Because when you have a black woman who looks out and sees a black man with a light-skinned woman or white woman, and not just but we're saying like multiple, right? Like this is, like we're seeing like high numbers of this, right? Constantly being inundated with these visuals. Visual, right? Things that you see that go straight to your mind, your psyche. It impacts the psyche. It's embedded into the black woman's psyche about what beauty is, based on who the black man chooses to marry. Looking at conversations on social media, black men, look, just look. It's so much implicit racial bias there, you guys. It's bad, and it's implicit because it's not made aware to the conscious mind. Like black people not even aware that they demonstrate a bias in favor of non-black women. Just look who gets the attention on social media. It's not to sit up here and look down upon, let's say, lighter skinned black women, but there is an issue of colorism at play, which means there is a preference for lighter complexion black women. Black men prefer lighter complexion black women. We cannot ignore that reality. Not to say all. I'm pretty sure there are black men watching this who say, I prefer the dark skin. But listen. Actions speak louder than words. What's being promoted more? Light-skinned women. That's what you see everywhere on Instagram. Lighter complexion women. And they are beautiful. I am one kind of woman, I can give a woman props. Beauty is beauty, right? But we're talking about an issue here that does impact the psyche of many black women. And when I tell you guys I had this encounter today in Brooklyn with this Nigerian woman who admitted, she explained to me, this is why. Because she's painting this social context in which she lives in, which we all live in, that has impacted her. And she just want to be loved. And it makes me wonder, like, because granted, we all live in the same society, but I ain't bleaching my skin. You get what I'm saying? I'm not bleaching my skin. I don't know. I did have a perm, but I think the perm, when I got my first perm, and it was funny because I didn't get my first perm. It was a while. Like my sister, my older sister, she was like asking me when she gave my first perm. And granted, I think I was a preteen, I think, when I got my first perm. But she was like, you sure you want to do this, Danielle? You sure? Like, yo, the whole process of her confirming my certainty and me getting a perm in my head was more traumatic than the perm, I think, itself. She's like, you sure? You sure? And I remember the first time when, after I finally said, I'm sure, yes, just do it. Just, because we already got the perm, right? I already got the perm. I had to buy it, of course. I got the perm. I don't know what kind it was. African Pride or I don't remember. And then, you know, sitting there, I'm sitting on the floor between her legs, and she's like, you sure? And I kept saying, yes, just freaking put the perm in my hair. And she started to do it, and she applied it to my hair. And I kid you not, you guys, the first time I got a perm, I ended up with a bald spot in the middle of my freaking head, yo. In the middle, I would never forget that. That shit was traumatic. When the perm was washed out, and it's not that it was left in too long, but it's a chemical, and it's just like, that shit don't belong in our freaking hair. They say that there is a correlation between the freaking chemicals and relaxers and black women getting fibroids. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. And so the perm was applied right. It wasn't left in too long. Made sure we kept to the time limits and all of that. Rinsed it out, and I noticed that I had a freaking bald spot. But did that stop me from getting perms? No, I think I did take like a little pause. And I think I waited maybe another month or so. But I started getting perms, and I stopped. I think, getting perms, I think, my senior year in high school, probably my freshman year in college. I went natural. I started getting like my fro, like comb twists. You know how they start off the locks. So I was getting like the comb twist from the Africans at the flea market in Jacksonville, Florida. And that's how I would wear my hair. And, you know, I eventually locked my hair up. So I locked my hair back in 2005. I was a junior in college at Florida State University. I ain't looked back. I've had these locks ever since 2005. We're in 2021. And I was, how old was I? 21, I think? 2021? Somewhere around there. Yeah, so that's been my journey. And you have to come to love yourself. Accept yourself for who you are, what you look like. You know, the whole thing about the perm, I think I just did it because it was just, everybody was doing it. Like, my sister had a perm, most people around me had a perm, so it's like, Why not get a perm? And I was like a preteen when I first got my first perm. So it's a mindset that's part of the Willie Lynch syndrome. Yes. But there's no question of, I would never, listen, I'm a complete naturalista. Like, I could not imagine doing anything to my freaking skin. I don't even wear makeup, you guys. So we talking about skin bleaching? No. Hell fuck no, yo. Listen, I had a freaking dream. I had a couple of dreams, and this shit was a freaking nightmare. This is what, I think I was back in LA, where in the nightmare, I dreamt about my skin was changing colors. I think that's what you said it's called, vitiligo, right? Vitiligo, whatever the fuck that shit called. And yo, my skin was changing from the color it is now to like, yo, I was turning white. I'm like, what the hell? But I'm wondering if that was just me kind of processing information in my mind that wasn't completely processed. They say that's what sometimes how dreams come about, or, you know, like, where dreams are derived from. Basically, it comes from like unprocessed or unfinished business in the waking hours, right? So maybe you've been thinking deeply about something, and then it kind of carries over, and the way it manifests, you're just like, how the fuck? Now, granted, I don't want to be white. I don't want to dye my skin or anything, but I think then, especially when I was back in LA, like, I was very deeply focused on race. Racial issues. You guys saw what comes to you guys and talk to you guys about racial issues on a regular basis. Now it's like my focus has switched a little bit to talking about relationships, dating, and, you know, alternative sexual relationships. But back when I was in LA, like, I talked a lot about race. Like, that was my worldview, looking at the world in terms of race, right? So I think it was just some weird kind of freak spirit trying to haunt me, I think. Trying to freaking, ew, that shit was scary. But I have not had that dream since I've been back in New York City. And I moved back here April of last year, 2020. Thank God. And hopefully that shit don't come up again, because that shit is a nightmare. I'm just like, God fucking forbid, yo. I love my skin, you know? You locked in 2008? Yeah, see, I love my skin, but yeah, so like the woman that I met, she was telling me that, you know, she was talking about business, how business is low, and she was saying how she noticed that, you know, black women, African American women essentially, don't buy the skin bleaching cream. I don't know how much it goes for, but she was like, yeah, I noticed, like, she was like, yeah, they don't buy it. She was like, the African American women don't buy it. The Caribbean women, they don't buy it. She was like, most of the women that buy it is the African women. African in terms of born in Africa, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're right about that. We ain't doing that shit. Listen, but there are some, I know there are a handful of African American women that do be trying to lighten their skin up. And they say Charlemagne did that too. But he tried to rationalize it to say that he was just evening out his skin complexion because there were some parts of his skin that he noticed were lighter toned than others. So he's made it seem as though he bleached his skin to even out the complexion. So he has one continuous complexion across his face. And I'm just like, yo, you ain't got to do that. All you got to do is eat. Eat good. But some people be doing that, you know, for whatever reason. For cosmetic reasons. But as far as the skin bleaching, you know, she was honest about it, you know, even though she did speak from a contextual standpoint to say that this is just something that a lot of African women do, and how, you know, men prefer lighter complexion women, and not just in the dating scene but also in the workforce, how just people are treated differently when they have a lighter complexion. But the irony to it, though, I'm listening to her say this and give me this kind of excuse for bleaching her skin, the irony is that she is still single. Like, she's single. Just like, okay, she can make the argument that, okay, she got the job. But did you really, I'm like, in my mind, like, did you really get the job because you have a lighter complexion, or maybe she's just a good person. She has good characteristics, which she does, you know. She has very great verbal skills and social skills, you know. That's how we were able to communicate and have this interesting conversation. So I'm like, it could just be your great social skills to say that it's because you have lighter skin, but that's her own internal process, right? That's her own bias. It's unfortunate. Yeah, you would think that they would be, and listen, you would think that they would be, you know, proud of their complexion, right? They, in terms of these African women, but it's like, I've seen pictures, yo, of the before and after, and the before, they look way better before. It's just like, that's a disease. That's a mental disease, yo. We talk about mental illness. People want to talk about depression, and we know that's a mental illness, and that's even more chemically based, too. That has a neurological component. We know depression links back to one's neurology in the brain. There's a depletion of serotonin. But listen, we need to sit up here and talking about, there need to be a whole DSM diagnosis for this confusion about one's identity, yo. It's an identity crisis. It's like, to not be happy with the race, the color, the complexion that you were born. It's like, African women are so beautiful. But if they live in a society that doesn't value them, that's making me feel a certain kind of way on the inside. It's disheartening. Because that's dangerous. Skin bleaching is very dangerous. And listen, you guys, like, that ain't even the whole entire story. There's more to the story. So, like I said, we were talking for about a good 20-30 minutes. And so when we were on the subject of the skin bleaching and the question that I asked as to why, and she can see my facial reaction, just like, it sounds like, so, like, why? And she pulled up her, I don't know if she was wearing a shirt or a dress or whatever the hell, but she pulled it up. And she lifted it up to the point where I could see, like, her breast. Not like, you know, her nipple, but, like, she was just wanting to show me, basically, how the skin bleaching looks. Because she basically has done her entire body. And when I was telling her about it's not safe, and I think she looks better, you know, with her darker skin. And she was like, she agreed with me. She was like, yeah, because looking at her hands, like, there are parts of her fingers that are her natural complexion, which is relatively dark, beautiful, chocolate. But then there are parts when it's a little bit lighter where she bleached it. And she was like, yeah, she showed me her legs. She pulled it up. She was like, yeah, my legs. And then she pulled up her top, and I can see, like, her breast, and it was bruised. It was red. I'm like, you harming yourself. She was like, yeah, it hurts. And I was just like, she was like, but I can't stop, though. I can't stop. I'm like, you can't stop. I said, well, I guess it's pretty much irreversible. Like, you already bleached it. How can you go back to the complexion you were born? She's like, yeah, it's irreversible. I can't go back. And she's like, I can't stop. Basically saying she got to finish it and even her whole tone out to the point where she's fully light-skinned. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I say it's an excuse, but I mean, beyond it being an excuse, it's a problem. It's a psychological problem. That's just like women that go and get the cosmetic surgery because they don't see themselves as beautiful. And they start with one. They may get their lips done or their nose done because they feel like, oh, with a big nose, like Africans, we have a certain kind of shaped nose. And they want to get the pointy nose. Or the big lips have been frowned upon, so to speak. But ironically, who go and get surgery to get bigger lips? The white women. But the black women want to take away their big lips. And they keep getting all these cosmetic surgeries to the point where you can't even recognize them 10 surgeries later. You're like, ew, what's going on with you? All because they don't feel that they're beautiful. And why don't they feel that way? It's how they're treated. And yes, these issues need to be talked about in the context of our society in which we live, right? Because these problems develop in the context of our society. It's not just impacting one individual, even though, yes, it impacts our psyche, individual psyche, but it's not just an individualistic problem. This is a social problem impacting a lot of people, and it's happening in a certain context. These people are responding to the way society has painted a picture of what beauty is and how they're treated, and they're trying to be seen. Trying to be seen. They want to feel, I mean, who doesn't? Who doesn't want to feel valued? Those are just basic human needs, desires. The need to feel valued, appreciated, accepted. And if it means bleaching one's skin to do that, but I'm like, have you noticed a difference? Do you get more men? She's still single. She still has men problems. She probably would be married by now. She's wondering like, oh, well, what's the problem with these men? I mean, I didn't have this conversation with her about, well, the skin bleaching might be the reason why your ass can't get a man. Or at least be married. I mean, your goal is to be married. Because if I can look at her and see that she bleached her skin, it's clear. You know what skin bleaching look like, yo. It's like, I know these men that she wanted to marry her can see it, and they just don't see her like that. Just love yourself for who, like they love you for who you are. She was like, they will, yes, you ain't have to bleach your skin. They like dark-skinned women. And then coming from Nigeria, all them men over there, all them goddamn. But then that was a whole nother thing too, though, because see, y'all, this thing go deep. She did bring up the culture of Nigerian men and some issues that she faced where, and this is consistent within her culture too. This is not just within her household, but it's consistent within her culture where she said that, you know, Nigerian men are very aggressive, very dominant, of course, domineering, and the women basically have to get on their knees and serve their husband his food like a servant. And the women aren't really allowed to speak up, to express how they feel about certain things. And she said that the women are silenced, you know. They don't have much power. And I get that. Because I've dated some African men, and have I not been able to experience what it's like. Just like, especially growing up as an African American woman, it's just like, we have a voice, right? And I know there is a period in American history where women may have felt like they didn't really have a voice, but compared to women in other countries and cultures, we're privileged in that respect. We can speak up and speak out. And the playing field has somewhat become leveled out a bit, where men are receiving that. Now, you can still got some men that are still old school alpha men, traditional men, and they're like, hell no, I ain't dealing with no woman who speak up like that and express herself. Hell no, you better be talking back to me. What I say go kind of thing, right? But I think for the most part, more and more men, I kind of talked about this in my other video, how more and more men are becoming more submissive, so to speak, or more receptive to a woman speaking up for herself. Saying if she doesn't like something, she could speak up and say it. Whereas in other cultures, not so much. And so she talked about how that has shaped her preference in a certain kind of man that she likes. And she likes to basically take the other role, the domineering role. So she is not the one who's being dominated and mistreated. But I'm like, interesting how that comes up though. Like, it's interesting. And I felt like it was more of a spiritual connection, because I'm like, it's a reason why she's telling me. I'm like, why is she telling me all this? It's like, I just came in here to buy some freaking African clothes to see what kind of things she had in her store. I didn't come in here to do a whole freaking therapy session. But it was more of me getting an understanding, I think, of her perspective. And raising awareness on the issues that are presently impacting African women. That's the reason why I wanted to make this video. And I also wanted to solicit your feedback to see what you guys think about this. This is tragic. But even though she switched roles and has taken on more of a dominant role in relationships with American black men, she's like, yeah, I dated some black men. Basically, it didn't work out, you know. She talked about long-term plans for the relationship in terms of marriage, and they like. But at the same time, the men that she's come across, though, seem to be like how she described it anyway, like upstanding men. Men help, you know, invest in her business, doing things for her in that respect. I'm just like, shit, you could have kept him. What happened? I was like, what happened? I was like, where he at now? I was like, oh, he left, you know, because the whole marriage thing. She mentioned the marriage. She was like, you fucked up. She was like, well, what you expect? Like, I'm not supposed to just keep doing this and living like girlfriend and boyfriend, so to speak, without, in her mind, solidifying the marriage, so that she's like, if he dies, like in her mind, like, I guess because in Nigeria, women outlive men for the most part in terms of life expectancy. You know, that women have a longer life expectancy, and so she's thinking in terms of just securing herself financially, you know, for the future. And it makes sense. These are things that are appropriate to think about for a woman of her age, in her mid-40s, right? People start thinking about retirement in that age, and, you know, just making sure you got the bag secured going forward. And if that bag means getting married to a man who's financially set, but it's just like, you in America, though. Things different. That's why you see a lot of independent women in America. And I had this conversation recently with a guy on a dating app, and yo, he fucking he got so triggered. And it's just like, listen, I know I can talk about triggering issues, right, controversial issues, but when I need a person, right, to be aware, men and women, when we're having conversations like this and you feel triggered, you feel some kind of emotion, strong emotions coming up, just because I'm the one addressing it, don't lash out on me though. I need you to check yourself, check your emotions. Pause for a second. Yes, Sharonda, everything happens for a reason. It's deep. But yeah, so just check yourself and realize, listen, don't lash out on me. But that's what I've been getting from people, especially men, where recently I was on a dating app and this guy asked me, do I know what the hell this man's name is? I don't even want to give this man no props, really. It's a black man. He's supposed to be like this freaking relationship coach, guru, or whatever. I don't even want to mention his name, but he's becoming very popular on Instagram, social media, YouTube. People go to him for advice. He looked like he might be in his 50s. And the guy on the dating app asked me, well, actually he had in his profile, oh, you know, do you know Kevin Gates? If you do, swipe right. If you don't, go look him up. So I was curious. I'm like, who is this person? So I looked up, what did I say, Kevin? Now, I don't think it's Kevin Gates. I don't know what's his last name. I don't know who this man is. I don't know why I thought about Kevin Gates. I think his first name is Kevin, though. I don't know the man's last name. I can't remember because I'm just like, I dismiss things from my mind if I feel like it's not relevant to my development as a person. But I do think his first name is Kevin. Gates, Gates is not the last name. But y'all probably know who I'm talking about. And so he had that in his profile. So me and my curiosity, you know, I reached out to him and I'm just like, who is this guy? Who is this person? And he's like, oh, you don't know? Obviously I don't. I'm asking you, who, like, what's the big deal? So I go and look him up on IG to see, kind of get a gist of what he was saying. And I'm just like, nah, he ain't nobody I will follow because he berates women. I don't like men who disrespect women, who devalue women. This whole idea, it sounds very MGTOW-ish, right? Where men have this ideology that they are the prize, so to speak, and that as women age, our value decreases. And he, the so-called freaking sex coach or relationship coach, whatever, mentioned in a very short video with this woman who was seeking advice from him, saying, oh, that thing down there ain't gonna be worth that much. And it's just very objectifying. Like, when I heard that, I'm just like, so I went back to the guy who I was chatting with on the dating app, and I say, this is your mentor? This is like somebody you look up to? And he was like, LOL, no, not really, but the guy, basically, he's trying to, you know, explain to say he follows him because he touches on a lot of things that he can relate to. And it helps him to understand why his past relationships didn't work out. And I'm just like, not to get too far off topic, but I just find it to be quite interesting because this is kind of related, though. We're talking about like relationships and black men and having appreciation for the black woman. This is kind of like all tied in. But it's just like interesting that how, first of all, that whole idea, the way he framed it in the video, this so-called relationship coach is like, oh, because I was gonna make a whole video on it, but I say, you know what, some things just really don't deserve your energy. But I'm talking about it in the context of this because I think it's relevant and important. For him to say that, oh, he was telling the woman, giving her so-called advice, saying that, oh, that thing down there ain't gonna be worth that much as you get older. Like, that's objectifying a woman to say that her value is tied to her vagina when, seriously? Now, I can get it. I can understand, like, for a man to say, okay, he's seeking out a woman who has good health, right, because he's thinking about procreating, but to think about her vagina as this object that decreases in value, which makes her decrease in value. It's just like, seriously? So, okay, let's go with that idea, right? Let's go with that premise to say, okay, that's true, that if a woman, as she ages, decreases in value, what does a man do? But see, that's their thinking. That's that MGTOW-ish thinking. Basically, MGTOW stands for men going their own way. It's basically men just berating women. When I know a MGTOW guy, just based on how he thinks, his theory, right? His philosophy. It's just, but that's a whole thing going on nowadays. And you have men that think like this and they act this way towards black women specifically. These are black men trying to jump on the bandwagon of MGTOW, when MGTOW really is a white man's movement, but the white men have enlisted black men to think this way. And we wonder why a lot of black men and black women just can't get along. There is no respect. the black man does not respect and appreciate the black. He don't even really respect himself. Because to respect and appreciate the black woman, you got to have self-love, respect for yourself and your race. Because it's a bigger picture out here. It's not about you and that woman. I mean, yes, it's happening on an individual level, that relationship, but it's bigger than that, right? Because we know that when there's healthy relationships between black men and black women, we have intact families. Intact families, we have intact, healthy black communities. Communities make up a race. So let's look at it from the big picture. If we create this black man versus black woman war and keep perpetuating that whole cycle, we wonder why the problems exist within the black community. It's just like, seriously? That kind of thinking isn't really going to get us anywhere. And so it just made me think about that particular conversation I had with him, and just to see how, yes, it's so many different factors, right, are at play when we're talking about relationships between black men and black women. And black women, unfortunately, have to deal with a lot. And I remember in response to that conversation, when I was on that dating app talking to that guy about this freaking fake ass relationship coach, I mentioned the reality as it relates to black men, because black men basically are becoming obsolete to the black woman. What reason does a black woman need a black man? Now, he got triggered, right? Because he took it as, I'm saying this from my own personal perspective that, oh, I don't need a black man. I would never say I don't need a black man. I'm saying, looking at our society and the context in which we live in and the reality that exists in our society as a byproduct of racism, discrimination, oppression, and all these other factors at play, the system has been set up to the point where black women can survive and live independent of a black man, which they have been doing. They are single. By choice? No. But that's how it has happened, because the black man has been marginalized, barred access to a lot of resources. He is lacking resources. Not to say that, oh, he is so much the victim that he doesn't have the power to go out there and make things happen. Yes, but it just makes it that much more difficult for him, because we know that the black man is targeted and all the way around the board. So this is a multifaceted conversation, and I get it. I get it. I empathize with the black man in that respect. And so black men are frustrated. They want to procreate. They're naturally driven, genetically wired to spread their seed, to procreate. That's what keeps us alive. That's why we're still here in 2021 as black people, despite the agenda to eliminate us off this planet. We're still here. Despite people are still procreating, even in impoverished conditions, right? When there is a major lack of resources, because that's a genetic wiring, that's a genetic code that is being carried out. We're going to fuck regardless and make babies regardless, right, of what's happening in our social context. But given that that's happening and black babies are still being born, when they're being born in a certain context, yes, it's going to create problems, distress, frustration. Black men bail out because he just can't deal with it. He's just like, okay, this is too much. Bail out, creating a single mother, single parent household. The cycle repeats itself. And this guy I was talking to in the dating app, he's saying that, oh, he's a product of a, single parent household, and his mom raised him by herself. And I'm like, that's a whole nother issue, because you have a lot of black men being born to black single mothers, and they somehow think that that is the prototype of how things should be, and they go create a whole nother single black mother with the woman that they're with. That's some deep shit. They don't even know they're doing that subconsciously. They're doing that. They're relating to this woman as if she is his single black mother. I'm like, oh, well, she did it. She was able to raise me by herself, work 2 and 3 jobs and pay all the bills. Like, that's not ideal conditions. What the hell? So when we go to say that a black woman doesn't need necessarily a black man, it just means that she has learned to adapt and live without the black man. Not necessarily by choice. But going back to the original conversation, though, there's a lot of stuff happening here, right? And to see that black women are faced with all these different forces, right? We have the white man over here, system of white supremacy, or as my old friend would say, the system of what it is ever present, fighting against that. Then we're fighting against each other on the other token, right? Fighting against the white man and trying to be accepted in their society and level up. And we know part of that leveling up is you give up part of yourself, and that's what's happening. So yes, like Sharonda mentioned, black people, we are guilty of it too. Becoming whitewashed, so to speak. Maybe not bleaching our skin, but symbolically speaking, we have become whitewashed. In our ways, in our attitudes, in our behavior towards each other as black men and black women, how we behave, we have become whitewashed. Africans are just more blatant with it. They're whitewashing. And they clearly whitewash their goddamn skin. You know, our minds are whitewashed. So that's interesting how that dichotomy exists within the African race. Fighting too much. Fighting each other as black men and women. Fighting the white man. The system of white supremacy. Like, it's a lot to fight psychologically. Trying to hold on to your black identity, but at the same time survive and exist successfully in this system that we know who controls it. We know, it's clear as day. Now, granted, we are in 2021. This came up in a conversation the other day. I forget who I was talking to. How a lot of these people, these youngins in this generation now, may be oblivious to the invisible hand that is puppeteering this whole situation here. And they may think that, oh, black people got it made. We good to go. What y'all complaining about? Are y'all talking about civil rights? Like, that was back then. That's old news. Like, that's not the issue now. Oh, it's the issue now. I think we are misguided, though, to think that the playing field has become completely leveled and equal, given that what we see on social media, right? And we see that black people got iPhones. Black people, we get access to cable TV. We out here dressing and buying nice clothes, Louis Vuitton and the expensive brands and all of that. Black people are buying homes, but the playing field is not equal. And it's not that we should want to be equal to a race of people that we don't share DNA with. Why would you want to be equal to someone who is much different than you are on a genetic level, on a molecular level? No. I think we just want to be treated equally. But even that's a whole nother conversation, because it's like, how are you going to be treated equally when you're on their land? Like, this is theirs, right? Like, they've clearly taken control over and dominated, right? And we can say as black people, no, the earth is ours and the fullness thereof, but that ain't the name of the game. Anything that you want to take hold of and claim as your own, you gotta be willing to, unfortunately, fight for. Territorial wars here are at play. So when you're under someone's system, it's like you gotta play by their rules. And when you know their rules aren't really in your favor, that's where the trick comes in. But on that note, I'm going to end this video. I appreciate you guys for watching. I want you guys to feel free to leave your comments below. This is a very difficult topic, I understand. But it needs to be addressed. My heart goes out to a lot of African American women, African women, and black men as well, who are impacted negatively by this system of what it is, you know, who feel they need to change who they are to be accepted, to fit in, to thrive, to survive, unfortunately. But it ain't over. That's the whole idea of resistance. And there's a whole history behind dreadlocks. I know, Sharonda, you mentioned how you have locks, but yes, the whole, story behind it. It's resistance. It's to show, no, this is who we are. We're going to hold on to that. We don't have to conform. I'm not a conformist. But at the same time, I think we all are conformists to a certain extent, right? So there are some of us who willingly conform. I'm talking about blatantly, readily, without hesitation conform. Yes, master. And do what you got to do to get that job. And then there's some of us who do the bare minimum to make it in today's society. Life is changing so fast, you guys, with this pandemic. It's happening so fast. Who knows where we're headed? There's always more to say, but I'm going to end this video on that note, and I'll catch you guys later. Thank you guys for watching.